Dan and Amy, and I'll tell you what, Amy, what you saw yesterday with the congressional hearing, particularly the back and forth between, say, Lindsey Graham and clap on, clap off James Clapper, as well as Sally Yates, is why I had no interest in practicing law. I mean, this whole thing is just so...
Nobody knows anything.
It's so painful, and it's just running in place. And it's just a lot of effort to run in place. But Charles Grassley, the Republican senator from Iowa, he did at least establish a couple of things with respect to the concern that some Republicans have, including the Trump administration, about unmasking of Trump official campaign operatives and Trump associates for political reasons. That remains an open question among a number of open questions, which are still open questions. But here is Grassley putting it to both Clapper and Yates on that topic.
I want to discuss unmasking. Mr. Clapper and Ms. Yates, did either of you ever request the unmasking of Mr. Trump, his associates, or any member of Congress?
Yes. In one case I did. I can specifically recall, but I can't discuss it any further than that.
You can't. So if I ask you for details, you said you can't discuss that? Is that what you said?
Not here.
Okay. Ms. Yates, can you answer that question? Did you ever request unmasking of Mr. Trump, his associates, or any member of Congress?
No.
And then the second question, the follow-up that Grassley asked was whether or not you requested a particular unmasking. Did you ever review material of said Trump campaign operatives or associates?
Question 2, did either of you ever review classified documents in which Mr. Trump, his associates, or members of Congress had been unmasked?
Oh, yes.
You have. Can you give us details here in this?
No, I can't.
Ms. Yates, have you?
Yes, I have, and no, I can't give you details.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
So you got
Yes, I have, but you can't have the information.
So I don't know, 8 to 10 months from now, we may have another congressional hearing to advance this just infinitesimally, and this will just continue on when there's nothing else in the news that's pressing and nothing else for them to do that's substantive, and these things are going nowhere in my estimation. But what do I know? I'm just a guy with a JD talking on the radio. So let's talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. He is former United States Attorney General and now the Dean of the Belmont University School of Law in scenic Tennessee.
Belmont Bruins.
Belmont Bruins is correct.
I finally learned.
He is Alberto Gonzales. General Gonzales, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Hey, can I follow up on your previous your conversation there? Listen, the fact that Clapper and Yates cannot talk about this information, this unmasking, in this public hearing doesn't mean that they won't provide the information in a closed hearing.
Right.
So as I listen to their testimony, what I hear them say is, we're talking about classified information here. We're talking about perhaps innocent Americans, and so we're not going to talk about this in the public hearing. Now, they have classified hearings and closed hearings all the time to deal with this kind of information. So the fact that it wasn't disclosed yesterday doesn't mean that Congress is not going to become aware of what it is that Clapper and Yates both know.
No, I concede the point, and it's important that you make it. But I guess mine is to say that these things have gone on interminably long. I mean, Jim Clapper hasn't been there for a year and a half now. I've lost track of time, and so many of the questions seem to me fairly straightforward, obvious fact-finding questions that could be asked and should have probably been asked privately already to move this thing along to some kind of conclusion.
I agree that sometimes the pace in Washington is interminable. It's frustrating, but it's just there's politics involved, but also there's classified information involved, and obviously people's lives and reputations are at stake, and you want to get it right. But yes, I certainly have to concede that it just takes a long time to get to the bottom of certain allegations and accusations.
Well, what did you take away from the hearing yesterday? Did you learn anything from Sally Yates or Clapper?
I can't speak to the relationship that exists in this Trump White House. I don't know Donald Trump. I certainly don't know Don McGahn. I can tell you with virtual certainty, as the former White House counsel, if the Attorney General, acting Attorney General, comes to me early in the administration and says what was said about Michael Flynn, I have no doubt I would have gone to the Chief of Staff, relayed the information, Andy Card, and I have virtually little doubt that he and I would have gone to the President and told him immediately, and I suspect President Bush would have said, go look at the information, come back to me and tell me what you think. I don't know that it would have taken 18 days, quite frankly. And so some of this is puzzling to me, and I'm not saying that people didn't do their jobs. I just unless there's information out there that I'm just not aware of, to me it's somewhat puzzling. I just described to you what would have occurred in the Bush White House. I don't know whether or not Don McGahn told the Chief of Staff, whether or not how quickly that information was conveyed to the President. I don't know whether or not the President gave the directions, okay, do an investigation, find out, and whether they did that. If they did, maybe it took 18 days. I don't know, but there's no evidence that of anything like that happening. So, again, there's a lot of information I'm just not aware of that raises questions in my mind about what really happened here.
Well, right, but I mean, I guess that's part of the question that the answer to which may explain the 18 days and may not. What did Michael Flynn do? Yates talked about things that could have put him in a compromising position, subjected him to blackmail by the Russians. But, of course, she's not going to disclose that in a public hearing, and I understand that. But that leaves the question open. And then NBC reporting yesterday, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the agency where Flynn was the director, didn't know that he had been paid $34,000 by a Russian state media outlet when it renewed his security clearance in April of 2016. So did that subsequently become known by Sally Yates, and is that what she communicated to the White House counsel, Don McGahn, or not? We don't know. So I mean, it's hard to make these judgment calls based on incomplete information, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, there's a lot of information here that's still missing, and so it's hard to I think reach a judgment as to whether or not things were done in an appropriate way. All I'm saying is, I have, as I said, virtual certainty about the way we would have handled it in the Bush administration, even early on in the administration.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it may be because I had a relationship with President Bush, as did Andy Card. Even though we were a new administration, we'd had a previous relationship. I don't know what kind of relationship. Well, I take that back. I think Don McGahn did have a relationship with Donald Trump. That relationship is important. There's a level of trust that develops between a lawyer and a client. And so, I just think that I would have gone immediately to the president and said, "This is what we've learned," and that's a serious allegation by the acting attorney general. And the president would have directed me, go look at the evidence, get comfortable, come back and report to me.
Which may have happened.
That would have been done. Pardon me?
Which may have happened.
Which may have happened, absolutely. But it may have taken 18 days, but I don't think so.
Okay.
It doesn't take long to go over to the Department of Justice, look at the information, talk to some people over there, not the career people. You don't want to put influence on them, but talk to the political people over there, come back to the president, and an assessment is made. And even if it does take 18 days, what you do is you keep Michael Flynn away from the most sensitive information. You keep him out of meetings because that further compromises the national security of our country. That may have happened. I don't know. Again, there's a lot here we just don't know.
Well, what do you make of that story, though, that was dropped right before the Yates hearing began about President Obama at the time warning President Trump about Michael Flynn?
That in and of itself, given the fact he'd come off a political campaign, may have raised alarm bells in President Trump, but the combination of then Sally Yates coming really creates, in my mind, a situation where I've got to take this seriously. There may be something here, and even though Michael Flynn is someone that I know and someone that I've trusted and someone that's been with me from the beginning, I've got to look at this thing very seriously because the loyalty to a friend, to a supporter, cannot trump the national security of our country. And that's an important factor as well.
Well, but
itself,
yeah,
go ahead.
But I was about to say, I probably cut you off. In and of itself, the Obama warning, we don't have all we know was kind of a general warning about Flynn. Now, of course, his security clearance was reauthorized in April of last year during the Obama administration. So maybe it was more that I don't think he was a good director of national intelligence or, whatever the relationship was. But it wasn't like it was a specific warning about being compromised or potentially compromising the federal government. There's no evidence to suggest that was the nature of the President Obama's warning to President Trump.
Apparently that is true. But with respect to the reauthorization of his clearance, again, the level of background and due diligence with respect to his previous reauthorization and the one that should have occurred when he became the national security advisor is very different. It's much more stringent, and so. But anyway, there's again still a lot of unanswered questions, and I know people are frustrated like yourself that this is going on so long. But there's still, at least in my mind, there still remains some unanswered questions.
Let me ask your reaction to a question that was answered, and this was Ms. Yates being asked by Lindsey Graham if she has confidence in the current Deputy Attorney General who is overseeing the investigation into allegations of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. She said that she did and thus didn't see a need for a special prosecutor on the matter, which, of course, runs counter to what the Democrats want. Is that would that be your position as well, if you do know these individuals?
Well, Rod Rosenstein was one of my U.S. attorneys, so
Okay.
I know Rod. He is, in essence, a career person. He's been there a long time, and I think enjoys a great deal of respect. And I think people view him as very competent. And so I think Sally Yates was right in her assessment about the ability and the impartiality of Rod Rosenstein to do this kind of investigation. As to whether or not there should be an independent commission, quite frankly, I'm not sure it's her place to offer up that kind of opinion. She obviously is going to protect the department and is going to say publicly, yes, we're up to this job. We can do this job. That is our job. But in the end, that's going to be up to Congress to decide as to whether or not there should be some kind of independent commission.
Do you? One of the things that troubles me about this too, and trying to sift through all of this and get to some answers, or even get to ask the right questions, is frankly the crisis in confidence in all of the individuals. I mean, we have a report out today about Comey's testimony last week on emails between Abedin and Anthony Weiner. It may not have been near as many as he suggested in his testimony. Comey's credibility has been questioned from every which direction. Clapper, of course, has been before Congress before, and he has said things that turned out not to be true about NSA metadata collecting. Sally Yates changed her answer in terms of what the basis of her opposition to Trump's executive order on immigration was, from what she previously said when she refused to enforce it or argue on behalf of it, defend it, to what she said before the committee yesterday. So part of this is you feel like you can't get to the truth because people who are in a position to know it aren't telling it to you.
Well, in fairness to what is said in testimony, sometimes you spend hours in that witness chair answering questions, and sometimes that member of Congress asking a question is looking for a particular answer, and sometimes is going to try to trip you up, and you want to be very, very careful and precise in your responses. But even with that kind of diligence, sometimes you realize, I misspoke. I should have said it a different way. And you go back and you try to correct the record, and that's the way that it should be, quite frankly. You want to make sure that the testimony you give is accurate and complete. I think it is unfortunate if the perception is growing that we can't have confidence in what our public officials say, particularly in the national security area. But also we have to be mindful of the fact that they are being asked questions about the most sensitive information related to the national security of our country, and they need to be especially careful about what they say publicly. Now, obviously, it's got to be accurate, but sometimes, yes, I understand why people feel the information or testimony is incomplete and not as revealing as we'd like it to be. And there may be national security reasons why that is so, although I have to concede that, for a public official, if you're going to err, you're going to err on the side of being conservative and not disclose anything. And sometimes it's true that the government goes too far in trying to protect information that really could be disclosed to the public.
All right. He is former counselor to the president, former United States Attorney General, now the dean at Belmont University School of Law. Alberto Gonzales, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.